I was the last to know that the inheritance of the house was not what I really wanted. For years, I watched my grandmother take care of that place, the home that held so many stories and laughter. The smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the voices of family gathered around the table, the warmth of hugs. The house was more than walls, it was the living memory of a faith that united us. But gradually, I began to realize that things were not that simple. I was there every Sunday, serving, helping, but there was always a shadow, a distance between me and those who claimed to be my brothers. While they gathered to pray, I felt invisible, a nameless servant. And deep down, there was a fear growing in me, the fear of not being accepted, of not truly belonging. But nothing prepared me for what would happen at the family meeting when our grandmother's lawyer announced that the house had a new owner. She inherited the house. I inherited the reason. The phrase echoed in my mind like a blow. At that moment, I realized that the house was not just a material asset. It was a symbol of everything I had endured in silence, of the lack of recognition and the hypocrisy that permeated our interactions. The truth is that while my cousin received the key, I felt the weight of everyone's gaze. The same gaze that judged me for not being as fervent, as dedicated, as perfect. I felt the ground disappear when I heard my name, but not as a blessing, but as a criticism. I was the problem, the non-belonging that tarnished the family's image, but there is something they didn't know. In that house, I carried the weight of an unrequited love, of an effort that was never valued. The faith they exalted was the same that isolated me. And while my cousin smiled, I realized that there was a dormant strength in me, a desire to break free from the pain that surrounded me, and it was at that moment that the truth came to light. I was the one who silently supported everything. I was the one who prayed during the early morning, the one who took care of the details that no one noticed, the one who sacrificed to keep that home united. They never knew, but my faith was what kept the house standing, even when I felt the most unwanted. I learned that true inheritance is not about material goods but about what we carry within us. And although the house now belongs to someone else, my inheritance is deeper. It is the wisdom that comes from rejection, the strength that arises from pain, and the certainty that my worth does not depend on their validation. God knows what is in each person's heart. I don't need a house to prove my faith. I learned that silence is the purest form of response and that, even without inheriting the house, I inherited the freedom to be who I am. Have you ever gone through this? Have you ever felt invisible in a place that was supposed to be yours? It's worth reflecting on that. Sometimes the worst pain is not the loss, but the discovery that the love around us was not real. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There was an echo in my mind, a repetition of words that kept resonating. You are the problem. That phrase became a painful mantra, a shadow that followed me not only in those family gatherings but in every moment of my life. I constantly wondered if there was something wrong with me, if my faith was insufficient, if my devotion was not genuine enough to be recognized. The pain of rejection was not just the loss of the house. It was the loss of what I believed was a home. While my cousin celebrated taking possession of the house, I found myself in a corner, watching the sparkle in her eyes, the joy I always wanted to feel. The hypocrisy of those family gatherings became clearer with each passing moment. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't realize that, behind every smile, there was an untold story, an unrecognized pain. And what hurt me the most was knowing that, even so, I still loved them. How could I feel so much and be so invisible at the same time? Many times, I found myself thinking about how it would be if I could open my heart, if I could expose all the wounds I carried. But the fear of not being accepted, of being judged again, kept me silent. What I wanted most was to be heard, but silence became my only refuge. And in that silence, I was shaping my own identity, an identity that didn't ask for permission but often felt wrong. I remember one night in particular when the house was still a home for all of us. I was sitting on the porch, looking at the stars, while the laughter and conversations echoed inside. It was a moment of solitude, but also of reflection. I thought about how many times I had tried to please, to maintain harmony, even when it meant stifling my own voice. The faith that was supposed to unite me with that family actually separated me. I was the stranger in my own home, and then the day of the meeting came. The lawyer was there, with that serious and impersonal tone, as if he were just doing his duty. He read the will with a coldness that cut through the air. Every word felt like a dagger. Every pause a torture, and amid those revelations, I realized that the house was not just a symbol of rejection. It was also a reflection of my own journey of faith, a journey marked by sacrifices and invisibility. In that moment, a wave of anger and sadness mixed inside me. How could they be so insensitive? How could they not see what I had done for all of us? The house that was no longer mine was intertwined with the memories of my life, and I felt that I was losing not just a place but a part of myself. And it was in that moment of pain that something inside me began to transform. I understood that I didn't need their approval to recognize my worth. The true inheritance I carried was the ability to love, even when I was not loved. It was the realization that faith does not reside in walls and roofs, but in the experiences, the struggles, and the victories we live, and even if they didn't see it, I knew there was a strength within me that could not be extinguished. And as the days passed, the pain of loss began to transform into something different. I realized that I was ready to break the cycle of silence and invisibility. I started to write. Words became my refuge, a way to express everything I felt. Each sentence was a release, each page a step towards my true identity. I wrote about the pain of rejection, about the struggle to find my place in a world that seemed not to want me. I wrote about the faith that sustained me, even when everything around me seemed to fall apart. And in writing, I discovered that those experiences, those unhealed wounds, were, in fact, what made me strong. Through writing, I began to understand that my story was not just mine, but of many who felt invisible. And, by sharing my truth, I realized there was a community of lost souls, waiting to be heard. The connection I always sought began to form, not in family gatherings, but in the words I put on paper. And so, with each word written, I began to rise again. The house that once seemed like a prison now became a symbol of liberation. I no longer needed it to validate my faith or my worth. The true inheritance I carried was the freedom to be who I really am, without fear of others' gaze. The path was not easy, but the journey became a testament to resilience. And looking back, I realized that each tear, each moment of pain, had shaped me into something stronger and more genuine. I was more than. I had become the woman who always existed within me, but who was hidden under layers of doubt and fear. Each page became a piece of a puzzle, a part of my identity that I was finally putting together. And as I wrote, I realized that my story was not just about the pain of loss, but also about the struggle for self-acceptance. Over time, the house became a distant memory. The walls that once echoed with laughter were now just an echo of what I had left behind. The true construction I needed was within me. I was learning to love myself, to recognize myself as a valuable piece. Regardless of what others thought, this process was not easy. But each small step brought a new understanding of the faith I carried. In one of these reflections, I realized that my relationship with faith was changing. Before, I saw it as a requirement, an obligation I had to fulfill to be accepted. Now, it was transforming into a personal journey, where I could explore my spirituality without the weight of external judgment. Each prayer I made became an intimate dialogue, a moment of genuine connection where I could truly be myself. One day, while writing about my experience in the park, I saw a group of young people gathering for a religious activity. I remembered how I used to feel as part of such groups, but now the scene brought a sense of freedom. I no longer needed the validation of those gatherings. Faith was not in rituals, but in the way I lived and treated others. It made me reflect, how many people were there just to fit in, as I did for so long? This new perspective gave me the courage to share my story with others. I began participating in writing groups and workshops, where I met others who were also seeking to express their truths. It was there that I realized that my pain resonated with many. Each story was unique, but the essence of rejection and the search for belonging was common to all of us. In each meeting, I felt more connected and less alone. What once isolated me now connected me to a network of souls who understood the depth of my suffering. And it was in this welcoming environment that I finally found the courage to talk about the house and what it represented in my life. As I shared my experience, I saw tears in the eyes of others. They too had their own stories of invisibility and pain. And as I spoke, I realized that what I had learned about love and acceptance was something that needed to be disseminated. Through vulnerability, we created a safe space where everyone could be heard. Writing became my act of resistance, every word I put on paper was a way of reclaiming my story. A silent cry that I existed and that my voice mattered, and by sharing these writings on online platforms, I started receiving messages of support and identification. Strangers became friends, and each interaction helped me build a new narrative about who I was and who I could be. There were still moments of sadness, of course. Sometimes, I found myself reliving the pain of those family gatherings, the disapproving looks from some, and the celebration of my cousin. But now, instead of letting them get me down, these moments turned into fuel for my writing. I wrote about what it was like to feel invisible, about the struggle to find a space in a world that seemed not to want me. And in doing so, I found my own voice, a voice that no longer needed to be whispered. Over time, I began to realize that the true legacy I carried was not just the freedom to be who I am, but also the responsibility to help others find their voices. Every story I told had the potential to illuminate someone's life, to create a space where others could feel seen and heard, and so, the house that once represented pain and rejection now became a symbol of freedom and transformation. Through writing, I was creating a home within myself, a place where I could be completely authentic. This home was not made of walls or roofs, but of self-love, acceptance, and the certainty that, regardless of where I was, I could find peace within myself. Sometimes, I find myself wondering what it would have been like if I had given voice to my pain earlier, but at the same time, I understand that every step of this journey was necessary. I learned that the time for healing is unique to each of us, and that there is no right or wrong path. What matters is that I continued to move forward, even when the road seemed dark today. Looking back, I see that every tear I shed, every word I wrote, brought me to this point. And even though the house is no longer mine, the true legacy I carry is the strength of knowing that I am capable of rising again, of reinventing myself, and of connecting with the essence that has always been within me. The journey is not over, on the contrary. It has only begun to expand in ways that I could never have imagined. With each passing day, writing became not just an act of expression, but also an act of healing. I allowed myself to dive into memories, wounds, and joys. I remember an afternoon when I decided to revisit the house. Now under the ownership of my cousin, what once caused me pain now awakened in me a desire for reconciliation with the past. As I walked through the streets I had traveled so many times before, I could feel the energy of the memories pulsating around me. The house was there, imposing and full of life, but I realized that its true essence was not in the walls. What truly mattered were the stories that still echoed in my heart. Every corner resonated with laughter and tears, and I remembered how many times I had sat on the porch, dreaming of the future while the world outside seemed so distant. It was there that I realized the house did not have the power to define me. I was more than the place where I grew up. I was what I carried within me. On that day, I decided to write about the moment I realized that faith was not in a physical space, but in the way we connect with each other. I remembered deep conversations I had with my grandmother, her encouraging words, and how she always believed that faith manifested in the small actions of daily life. And so as I wrote, I realized that the legacy I truly wanted was the ability to love and care. Just as she had. Through writing, I was rewriting my narrative. It was no longer the story of an invisible woman, but of a woman who learned to see and be seen. I shared my reflections in online groups, and the response was overwhelming. Women of all ages began to connect, to share their own experiences of invisibility and rejection. It was as if, together, we were forming a support circle where every voice mattered and every story was meaningful. There was something magical about realizing I was not alone. Every message I received reminded me that pain was not a burden to be carried in silence, but a bridge that united us. Some women shared their experiences in churches that had silenced them, others about families that did not accept them. And in every account, there was an echo of my own story. By listening to these voices, I felt stronger, more connected to something greater than all of us. One day, while attending a writing workshop, I met a woman who had faced a situation similar to mine. She had been rejected by her family for distancing herself from the religion that once defined her. Upon hearing her story, my heart tightened, but at the same time, I realized that we were both in a process of liberation. Together, we began to explore the idea that true faith can be found in authenticity, sincerity, and the courage to be who we are, regardless of external expectations. This friendship became a cornerstone in my life. We started writing together, sharing our texts, and dreaming about the possibility of a book that would gather our stories and those of other women who felt invisible. It was a bold idea, but for the first time, I felt that I had the necessary support to take a risk. Writing, which used to be a solitary refuge, now became a space of collaboration and hope. As we progressed on this project, I realized that the house that once brought me pain now became a symbol of transformation. Through words, we were creating a new home, a place where all our stories could be told and heard. And when we finally decided to hold an event to launch our book, I felt a wave of emotion run through my body. It was as if every tear I had shed over the years was finally finding a purpose. On the day of the launch, the atmosphere was charged with expectation. Women and men gathered to hear our stories, and when I approached the microphone, a whirlwind of emotions took over me. I looked at the audience and saw familiar and unfamiliar faces, but all sharing the same thirst for connection. As I spoke about my journey, about the house and what it represented, I realized I was no longer alone. I was surrounded by a community of souls who understood the depth of pain but also the beauty of recovery. At the end of the event, many people came to hug me, sharing their own stories, their struggles, and their victories. Each encounter was a confirmation that vulnerability is indeed an act of courage. I had transformed the pain into words and the words into connection. The house was no longer a prison, it was a starting point for something greater. And as I walked through the event space, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. The house that once symbolized my pain had now become a springboard for my freedom. Looking around, I realized that each person present was a testament to the fact that pain can be a catalyst for transformation. And, in that moment, the idea that I could be a voice for others seemed more real than ever. Those conversations after the event were like seeds planted in fertile soil. Women shared their stories of struggle, and I listened with an open heart. Each story brought to light not just the pain, but also the strength born from overcoming. It was as if we were forming a sacred circle, where vulnerability became a safe space for each one to express themselves. I felt that there, in that group, we were creating a new type of family, one not based on blood ties, but on ties of empathy and understanding. As I wrote about these experiences, I realized that my journey was just beginning. The desire to share my story transformed into an urge to help other women find their voices. I began to think about how I could create a broader space for these stories to be told. And that's how the idea of a blog came about, a space where I could gather the stories of other women, a place where pain could be transformed into strength. The idea of having a blog gave me new energy. I started working on it in my free moments, writing about everything I had learned. I was kind to myself, allowing each word to flow without pressure. The blog was not just a project, it was an extension of my soul, a reflection of everything I had experienced. And as I wrote, I felt that I was not only telling my story but also validating the experiences of so many others who had felt invisible. In the following months, the blog grew. I received messages from women of different ages and backgrounds, all sharing their stories of rejection and overcoming. Some talked about experiences in churches that silenced them, others about families that did not accept their choices. In each account, I saw fragments of my own story, and that encouraged me to continue. It was as if each new voice was adding a piece to the puzzle that made up our community. The feedback I received was overwhelming. Women told me that reading my words made them feel seen and heard for the first time. Some reported tears of relief upon realizing that they were not alone in their struggles. Others said they felt inspired to share their own stories, to open their wounds, and to seek healing. And with each message, my heart filled with gratitude. I had found a greater purpose, helping other women reconnect with their stories and claim their places in the world. Over time, the blog became a virtual meeting point. I organized online gatherings where women could connect, share, and support each other. These gatherings were moments of pure magic. I saw faces that were once strangers become friends, and words transform into virtual hugs. It was incredible to realize that, even at a distance, we were creating a support network that transcended geographical barriers. During one of those meetings, I met a woman who had gone through an experience very similar to mine. She had been excluded from her church for not conforming to the expectations imposed on her. When I heard her story, I felt a deep connection. It was as if we were talking not just about our pains, but our victories as well. We decided together to create a project that would combine our experiences into a book. The idea of sharing our stories of overcoming with the world gave us new energy. Writing this book became an act of healing for both of us. Each chapter we wrote was a testimony of resilience and self-love. We remembered moments of pain, it's true, but we also celebrated the small victories that brought us to that point. Writing about our experiences became a way to honor our journeys and simultaneously create space for other women to see themselves reflected in our words. As we worked on the book, I realized that the house that had once brought me so much pain had transformed into a symbol of everything I had overcome. I was able to look at the past with gratitude, recognizing that without those experiences, I would not have found the strength I so badly needed. And by talking about it in the book, I realized I was finally releasing the weight of the pain I had carried for so long. The launch of our book was a milestone. We organized an event that brought together not only family and friends, but also the community we had built over time. The environment was full of expectation and love. When I stepped onto the stage to talk about our journey, I felt the pulsating energy of the room. Every gaze turned towards me was a reminder that I was no longer alone, and I was preparing to share my truth. A mix of nervousness and joy took over me. I wasn't just telling my story. I was giving a voice to all those women who, like me, felt invisible in a world that demands conformity. As I looked at the audience, I saw expressions of empathy and understanding, and that gave me courage. I was able to talk about the house, about the memories it held, and how, for a long time, the pain of rejection prevented me from seeing what really mattered. There was something liberating about exposing my vulnerability. As the words flowed, I realized that I was no longer speaking just for others. I was also allowing myself to be heard, and at that moment, I understood that healing was not just in writing, but in sharing and connecting. As soon as I finished, a wave of applause burst through the room. The energy was palpable, and I saw tears in the eyes of some women. It was as if, through my story, they could touch their own pains and joys. And there in the middle of the audience, I saw familiar faces who, even without words, were there to support me. That network of love and empathy was everything I had sought, and, finally, I had found it. After the presentation, many people approached to talk. Each shared story was like a balm for the soul. One woman told me about her struggle to reconcile with her faith after being rejected by her church. Another shared her experience of being kicked out of her home for not fitting family expectations. In each account, I saw echoes of my own story, and that connected me even more to them. The pain that was once solitary was now transformed into a welcoming space. Days passed, and the book launch became a milestone in my life. I began to receive messages from women from different parts of the country, all sharing how my words touched them. Some said that, for the first time in their lives, first time they felt seen. Others were encouraged to share their stories, inspired by the courage they saw in me. What was once a solitary project was now becoming a movement, a call for every woman to find her voice. Amidst this new journey, I realized that the healing process was not linear. There were days when the pain would still appear, like a persistent shadow. But now, instead of letting it get me down, I faced it as part of my story. I learned that vulnerability is not weakness, but a powerful strength that connects us. And by sharing my pain, I was actually making space for other women to feel encouraged to do the same. One evening, as I was writing in my journal, an idea began to take shape. What if we created a physical space where women could gather, share their stories, and find support? A place where pain could be transformed into strength, where vulnerability would be celebrated and not repressed. The idea seemed bold but also full of hope. I started researching how I could make this a reality. The idea of a support circle for women grew in my heart. I joined some friends who were also on this journey of healing and sharing. We talked about what would be necessary to create a welcoming and safe environment. We wanted every woman who walked through those doors to feel at home, free to be who they truly are. Thus, we took the first steps to create the Circle of Voices. The organization process was challenging but also extremely rewarding. We found a small but cozy space where we could meet once a week. Each meeting would be an opportunity to share stories, do writing exercises, and, above all, find mutual support. The idea was to create an environment where pain could be transformed into strength, where every woman could feel seen and heard. On the day of the inauguration, my heart was pounding with anticipation. I prepared a small speech to welcome everyone, but deep down, I knew that what really mattered was the space we were creating together. When the first women began to arrive, I was overcome with a sense of joy and gratitude. They were there, ready to share their stories, their pain, and their joys. The meeting started simply but quickly became moments of deep connection. Each woman who sat with us brought a unique baggage, and as we shared, we formed a fabric of intertwined stories. It was as if every word spoken there was a thread that united us. Creating a bond of solidarity and empathy, the circle of voice quickly became a safe space where tears were welcome and smiles were celebrated. I remember one night in particular when a woman new to the group began to share her story of rejection. As she spoke about her feelings, her words were laden with pain but also with incredible courage. At the end of her story, I noticed that the atmosphere was charged with emotion. There was a respectful silence, a sacred space where each person allowed themselves to feel. Tears streamed down faces, but there was also a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Her courage in sharing her pain inspired others to open their hearts, and at that moment, I realized that the circle of voice was becoming more than just a group. It was transforming into a true community. Weeks passed, and each meeting became a new opportunity for connection. The stories flowed like a river, and the vulnerability of each woman was met with open arms. One by one, they shared their experiences of invisibility and rejection, and as they spoke, I saw smiles forming, heads nodding in understanding. It was incredible how pain, when exposed, became a bridge that united all of us. One night, a woman named Anna brought a poem she had written. As she read it, her words reverberated in every corner of the room. Pain is like a river that flows, but love is the shore that sustains. Each verse touched on wounds that many of us carried, serving as a reminder that even in storms, there was beauty in our struggle. Anna finished her reading with tears in her eyes, and instead of silence, we applauded. It was a celebration of courage and authenticity. The circle of voice began to attract more women, each bringing not only their stories but also their hopes. Some started to bring friends, and the room that once seemed small was now filled with laughter and dialogue. The space lit up with the energy of women who finally felt seen. There was something magical about seeing each one transform. The pain that once isolated them now became what united them. During one of these meetings, a woman named Louisa shared her struggle to reconnect with her spirituality after a period of rejection in her religious community. She spoke about how she felt lost, not knowing where to seek solace. Her story resonated deeply with me, and I realized that many of us had gone through similar moments. Faith, which should be a shelter, often became a source of pain. It was at that moment that we decided we would not only share our stories but also explore spirituality in a more inclusive manner. Where all voices were heard, we created a space within the meetings so that each one could speak about their relationship with faith without fear of judgment. We wanted every woman to feel free to express her beliefs, her doubts, and her discoveries. The conversations about spirituality began to flow naturally. Some women spoke about how they found comfort in practices like meditation and yoga, while others shared their experiences of faith outside conventional religious traditions. There was a sense of relief in realizing that each of us was on a unique journey, but at the same time, we were all seeking the same thing: belonging. One evening, we decided to hold a reflection circle, where each person could bring an object representing their spiritual journey. The responses were moving. One woman brought a candle, symbolizing the light she sought in moments of darkness. Another brought a small journal where she recorded her prayers and reflections. By sharing these objects, each of us was revealing a piece of her soul, and this brought us even closer. It was a moment of profound connection and empathy. Looking at those women, I saw how we were all different, yet so similar at the same time. Pain and struggle were intertwined in our stories, and together, we were creating a new understanding of faith and belonging. As the meetings continued, we decided it was time to expand our impact. The Circle of Voice could not just be a safe space. It had to be a platform for other women to know our story and feel inspired to share theirs. So, we decided to organize a public event where we could invite other women to join us. The event planning was intense, but the excitement was palpable. Each of us became actively involved, bringing ideas, suggestions, and above all, her own energy. We wanted it to be a memorable day. A day in Sofria com ela e, ao mesmo tempo, me sentia renovada por sua forca. Era como se, ao compartilhar sua dor, ela estivesse nos oferecendo a possibilidade de cura ao longo do dia. Histórias como a dela foram se entrelaçando, criando uma tapacaria de vivências diversas. Uma jovem mulher compartilhou sobre abuso emocionally como encontrou caminho rodar a Cooper Aquo. A traves tarde. Outra falou sobre a descoberta tardia de sua orientação sexually a luta por aceitação dentro de sua comunidade. Cada compartilhamento era pedaço de alma revelado. Uma verdade desnudada diante de grupo de estranhas que, naquele momento, se tornavam irmãs. A dor era acompanhada de resiliência, e cada lágrima derramada parecia levar pouco da tristeza, abrindo espaço para algo novo e esperançoso, no final da tarde. Quando as luzes começaram a diminuir, organizamos último círculo dessa vez. Cada uma teve a chance de dizer o que mais tocou ou que desejava levar consigo daquele encontro. As palavras de agradecimento e esperança e pelo espaço. E eu senti uma paz profunda ao perceber que nossos esforços haviam criado algo realmente significativo. Somos todas dali transformadas. Sabíamos que nossas histórias agora estavam entrelaçadas. Que nossa forca compartilhada nos faria mais fortes para enfrentar os dias vindouros. O mural estava repleto de mensagens de empoderamento e carinho, testemunho visual do impacto daquele encontro. Ao nos despedirmos, o sentimento de comunidade e apoio continuava vibrante. Ficou claro que aquele espaço de acolhimento e transformação era apenas o início de algo maior. Cada coração ali presente, uma semente de coragem havia sido plantada. E eu sabia que não importava que desafios viessem pela frente. Nós não estaríamos mais sozinhas. I could see tears streaming down her face, but there was also a glow of strength emanating from her. When she finished, the room exploded in applause, and I realized that each clap was a recognition of her bravery. One by one, other women stood up. Each account added a new layer of vulnerability, and as the stories unfolded, the connection between us grew stronger. Some spoke about their experiences in churches that had silenced them, others about their struggle to find a place in their families. There was an echo of pain, but also of resilience. The room vibrated with the authenticity of each account, and with every shared story, the barriers between us seemed to dissolve. A young woman, who introduced herself as Sophia, spoke about how rejection had led her to question her identity. She described the feeling of being trapped between two cultures, trying to fit into a place that did not accept her. As she spoke, I could feel her struggle, and it struck a chord with me. I remembered my own insecurities and the relentless pursuit of acceptance. She ended her speech by asking for support and understanding, and the applause that followed was a collective cry of empathy and solidarity. With each story, I felt more connected to the group. The pain that once seemed isolated now transformed into collective strength, a reminder that we were all part of something bigger. As the day progressed, we decided that we would not only listen but also actively support each other. We created small discussion groups where we could delve deeper into the shared experiences. It was an opportunity to reflect on what each of us had learned from our struggles and how we could help one another. As I walked among the groups, I noticed that the conversations were filled with laughter and tears. Women who once felt invisible now saw themselves reflected in others' stories. Connections were forming from organically, and the energy of the space became palpable. A feeling of hope permeated the conversations, and I felt grateful to be there, witnessing the healing happening before my eyes. In one of the groups, a woman named Clara shared how writing had become a refuge in her life. She talked about the journal she kept, where she expressed her emotions and struggled to understand her relationship with faith. As I listened to her words, I realized that many of us shared this passion for writing. Clara suggested that each of us write a letter to our younger selves, offering advice and encouragement. The idea immediately resonated within me. It was a way to connect with the past and, at the same time, to heal ourselves. Sitting in circles, we began to write. The silence was filled with the sound of pens scratching paper, and suddenly, the room was immersed in a sacred space of reflection. As I wrote, tears ran down my face. I thought of the young girl I once was, full of insecurities and doubts. The letter I was writing was a loving embrace, a reminder that everything would be okay. Looking around, I saw other women with the same introspective look. It was as if the act of writing was not just an exercise but a form of liberation. After our writing time, we gathered again to share. Some women read their letters out loud, and every word was a testimony to the pain and strength we carried. The room was filled with a mixture of emotions, laughter, tears, and applause intertwined, creating an environment of deep warmth. By the end, I felt that we were all lighter, as if part of the burden we carried had been shared and, somehow, relieved. Words had the power to unite us, to transform pain into a space of acceptance and understanding. It was as if each story read, each tear shed, spilled, was weaving an invisible web of solidarity among us. After that experience, our circle became even stronger. We decided that at each meeting, we would have a central theme, something that would allow us to explore different facets of our experiences. A few weeks later, we chose to address the issue of forgiveness, a delicate but necessary theme. Forgiving those who have hurt us, forgiving ourselves for the choices we made, and perhaps finding a way to forgive life for the injustices we faced. On the day of the meeting, the room was full of anticipation. As soon as we gathered, I shared a reflection on forgiveness and how it did not necessarily mean forgetting but rather releasing the weight we carried. I spoke about the importance of finding a safe space to express our pains, not rushing to heal, but allowing each of us to feel what we needed to feel. A woman named Mariana, who had remained more reserved in previous meetings, decided to open her heart. With a trembling voice, she began to share her struggle to forgive her mother, who had rejected her at a crucial moment in her life. Her words were laden with pain, and as she spoke, I could see how that weight had accompanied her for years. The room was silent, and at the end of her account, a wave of empathy and support enveloped all of us. What could have been a moment of shame turned into an act of collective courage. That day, I realized that forgiveness was not a destination but a journey. Each of us was at different stages of that journey, and recognizing this allowed us to be kinder to one another. We discussed how forgiveness could be a long and complicated process, but also a key to freedom. Each shared story, each tear, was a step toward a lighter future. After this meeting, some women started to feel comfortable sharing their own experiences and challenges related to forgiveness. Each story became a new layer of understanding, and as we explored these emotions, we created a space where pain was not only recognized but embraced. The circle of voice was becoming a true refuge, a home where each woman could be seen in her authenticity and vulnerability. The following week, we decided that each of us would write a letter to someone in need of forgiveness in our lives, or even a letter to ourselves, acknowledging our own struggles and choices. The act of writing became not only a creative exercise but a powerful tool for healing. When I read my letter aloud, I could feel the emotions flow again, and I realized that by sharing, I was allowing my pain to transform into something beautiful and meaningful. Each of us was learning that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness but a form of strength. In that space, we were creating not just a circle of voices but a circle of support and love. The pain that once seemed isolated now pulsed like a collective heart, where vulnerability became an act of courage. And so, as we continued our journey, I felt that we were not only writing our stories but also creating a legacy of empathy and understanding. The house that had once represented rejection before you leave, due to things now. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive upcoming messages, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. To continue, watch the next video. It is already in the cards and also in the description.